Join us. Let's go ahead and look at what we can use in Visual Studio Code to kind of help us with our development. So this is a development environment, and as such, it has lots of preferences, settings, and abilities. So two of the things I'd like to look at would be snippets and Emmet. Great. Well, what do those things mean? Let's take a look. First of all, let's launch a folder. I called it demonstration. So as you know, you can just go in here, run the command line. It pops up the command window. And of course, I'm working in Windows, so you could just open folder in Visual Studio Code, or just say, okay, I'm in that folder, I want this. Well, I messed up and I didn't go into the right folder, but I want to go in here. Let me do that again. So I'll stop this, go into demonstrations, just type command. It opens up the terminal and the place I need to be. Now code is the global command that I can use wherever in my system to launch Visual Studio Code. And I want to launch it in a current directory. So I just do that and it does. And I'm there. I get my welcome screen. I don't need that. Okay, so what we're going to play with is first snippets. Now I'm going to show a snippet using HTML to start with, even though that's obviously not the only thing that we could use. It's any of the languages. So let's go ahead and create a new file. I'll just call this, sample. And of course I have a blank canvas to work with. Well, I can type HTML, and you probably have seen this by default if you haven't changed anything. But I've added this template right here called 230, and it goes ahead and builds something that I've created, right, that has some parts to it more so than just the default, and I can have it all built out and I don't have to waste my time typing things. Well, how do we build those things? How do we create these templates or snippets? Well, we can go into our preferences and then goes to User Snippets. Okay, so now I have existing snippet there, or I could create a new one. And then of course you could see all the different languages that we could build snippets in that obviously are supported by Visual Studio Code. Let's click on this one just to see how it's built. So it looks like a JSON object, so it's a JSON file. So we have name value pairs, and they provide a description here of what you should do. It has to have three parts. It has to have a prefix, right? And it has to have a body and a named description with their values. Now the prefix is what we type in as the shortcut versus like typing out the whole name of the snippet. So notice how this is built. The whole name of the snippet's here, colon, and then it says, okay, well I have an object here with three parts. Prefix, body, and description. Now in the body is where you have to define what you want it to write out in text. Okay, so this is a big old string, and we have escape characters for those quotes that we need in there, because obviously quotes or double quotes are what are used in this JSON file. Okay, and it treats it like this big array of stuff, but it's just a big array of strings that each line is then separated by a comma. And again, with HTML we want to use double quotes, so this is the only painful little part, and you can put whatever you want in here as your snippet. So that's an idea, right? You can take that idea and then run with it, because look at this one. They did an example for, say, print to the console, and the prefix is log, and what it'll do is go ahead and log, and then it has this $1, which is a variable, whatever variable in place that needs to be there, and it does the job. So that's pretty interesting. So that's how you create snippets, is just opening up that, and you may want to create one for your HTML instead of starting over again, or even, maybe you built a template, and so that's fine, and you just copy that file and paste it, but maybe you want to start with something simpler, or just little smaller pieces that you want to insert at certain points, right? Like maybe you have a certain style for footers, or for CSS. Let's just say you're always doing body a certain way, and then you can go in and change the values later. So let's kind of build off of that idea, and I'm going to use this file if it's okay. I'm going to say that, oh, I didn't need any of this. I'm going to have to look at this stuff. Now we're going to do Emmet. It's built into Visual Studio Code. I have a little tab function, that's why mine's redlines my tabs that are empty. So with Emmet, I could type things like, oh, I want a header. I don't even have to do the painful thing of creating my brackets, my greater than and less than sign, right? I can just hit header tab and I'm right into the header, right? And I could do this and start building stuff. So it's even more powerful as it closes out the tag for you. That's great. But let's just say maybe I want a navigation and I want it to be an unordered list with list items. Let's make them ×5. And within the list items, I want an anchor tag. And each of those will have a class named menu item. And then I want a footer below this nav. I'm going to go ahead and make a mistake by showing you. It says, okay, well, after the nav, let's start a new thing in the same line. We use that uptick, right? So above the 6, that hat. And I'll say I want a footer. Now this is going to be a mistake, and I'll show you how and what's going on here in a second. So I'll just hit enter, and it builds it. So I have my nav UL with all those LIs, 5 of them, anchor tags inside, all with a class and menu item. Perfect. In fact, it even put in the href attribute saying, hey, look, if you're going to use an anchor tag, you're going to want that href attribute more than likely, right? But the footer didn't end up below the nav, so I said, oh no. So I'm just going to hit Control-Z, which is just undo in whatever system you're in. It goes back to my Emmet little command, and I say, oh yeah, I got to fix this. I've got to go not within those anchor tag lists, and not within the UL, but below the nav. So if I add 3 of those upticks, oh, something happened, and I don't know what. I didn't hit tab. I was hitting the enter and it didn't like it. Okay, so there I go. And the footer now is below the nav. So that was just for fun. I was just saying, hey, I inserted this nav, and then for some reason I wanted the footer right there. So you'll find that with any of those things. Now let's create a CSS file real quick and show that we can do the same thing with Emmet in there. And then we'll be done. So let's just do, we have a style, and we're going to do this. And let's just say I have the body. Well, let's just say I'm going to say, oh, I'm working with articles, something more interesting, right? So I will go ahead and create that. Now I could do things like display, and you can already see that what we have here is IntelliSense coming up, and it's actually helping me a little bit. But I just put DN, because it means display none, display grid, display flex, display table cell, maybe, let's see if it works. Yeah, TC. So it's kind of like just using these semantics of saying, hey, the first letter, that's a keyword. In fact, it's highlighting it there for me to help me in the IntelliSense. But you can see that it's saying, hey, this is what's going to happen if you do that. So Visual Studio Code loves us so much that it's going to help us with these things. So let's just say I'm displaying it as a grid for some reason. Oops. I had to hit end and then enter. And then maybe I want my padding to be 10. If you do that, it's going to put it in as pixels, and I'll hit enter. My margin 10. Okay, so again, we have some Emmet commands, and believe me, believe you, you can manage these and edit them and refine them further. So how do you find out how to dig into all this stuff? Well, let's look at the documentation. So obviously under the docs, on Visual Studio Code site, under the docs, we can get into user-defined snippets and learn about all different types of snippets that we could build, how to create our own, the process. It reviews everything I just demonstrated, but with more depth. In Emmet, same thing. So under docs, editor, Emmet, we could go in and learn all about it, like they're building this unordered list, all sorts of ways to turn it off if you don't like it popping up and trying to help you. And different things in different languages too to help you solve problems with Emmet. So as always, there's documentation available. All right, see ya.